This is Jonathan Ferguson, the keeper of firearms and artillery at the Royal Armouries Museum in the UK, which houses a collection of thousands of iconic weapons from throughout history. And on this episode, we're back for the second part of Jonathan's look at the weapons of Ready or Not.
Yeah, something I've gone on about previously from the good old days of Rainbow Six and SWAT and games like that is realistic ammunition management, which John Browning be praised, we have in this game.
If you want to see more of Jonathan's take on Ready or Not, make sure to subscribe and check out our previous episode on the game's firearms. And for something a little bit different, we have David Rawlings, a swordmaster of over 25 years, breaking down some of the weapons of Elden Ring.
In my many years of fighting the Kraken, there's nothing I can find wrong with this.
Right, let's get back to the guns of Ready or Not.
Okay, I just want to say that I very much enjoy the reloading, the brass check or press check animations that are included, kind of pointlessly, but I mean that in a good way. So, you know, in a game, more so even than real life, you know absolutely for sure when your gun is loaded, but it still affords you the ability to check for cool points, and it's a nod toward the real world where double checking that you definitely have chambered around is something that is done. The reload of this shotgun, so this is a less lethal shotgun based on a Remington 870. It has the coloured furniture so that ideally you don't load the wrong ammunition in it and cause a serious incident. There have been shotguns historically where they only chamber safe ammunition. From what I can tell, it's more reliant upon good training and colour coding and things like that now. But if anyone has more experience on that, please do make a comment below. The loading of the cartridges is such a simple thing. We've seen it done since the beginning of first-person shooters. They tend to fly in there at super speed, and it's not an issue at all. But if you've ever loaded a tube-fed firearm, you know it does require a bit of effort. It requires a bit of practice to do it smoothly and quickly. And I get a hint of that here. So I get a bit of the weight and effort required to insert a cartridge. It's very hard to do, but I think they've done a good job there. And then with the classic pump action sound as well. This one's a less lethal one, but they seem to have nailed the pump action quite nicely. Restrained
Suspect
targets.
is visible.
Drop your weapon!
Drop
it
your
now!
weapon.
Shoot him! Drop it now!
Okay, I won't do anything else.
Right, so a good demonstration there of the theory of less than lethal weapons in the context of beanbag shotguns or perhaps baton rounds. So you are shooting someone with a 12 gauge pump action shotgun, but the ammunition is the thing that's different, of course. And it's essentially it's a sort of remote truncheon, really. It's about causing pain, discomfort, confusion, and making people rethink their life choices when they are otherwise potentially going to shoot at you. And we saw it actually work quite well there. I'm sure that's not always the case. The character took a couple of rounds and decided, yeah, maybe I'll put my gun down and surrender. And that is, of course, the theory of a weapon like this. Of course, the downside of less lethal weapons is that they are less reliable when it comes to stopping a threat. So they have to typically be used in conjunction with lethal weapons in case things go badly for the less lethal option. Chap there took a beanbag round, I think it's meant to be, in the side of the head. Not a good idea. You don't want to be shooting people in the head with anything if you can possibly avoid it, because of course the risk of head injury is, even with a less lethal weapon, is much increased. And although it's interesting that did appear to actually knock him out momentarily. Incidentally, I don't know if the white kind of powder effect that shows you your point of impact with this, as I've no experience with beanbag shotguns, I don't know if that's realistic or not. If anyone knows, let me know down below. Okay, the Beretta. This is not by any means out of place in this universe. They are still in use. Beretta is becoming less common, perhaps in SWAT teams anyway, but they're still out there. And this is a recent model. This is the 92X. It's got the frame-mounted safety that normally would make you think this is a Taurus, but not so. This is actually a Beretta. A couple of other modern features as well, or more modern. But what draws my eye is the fake manufacturer's markings on the side. So we've got what looks a lot like a Beretta logo, but I'm sure it's different. And then the name Padania. Now, I did actually have to look this up. Padania is a separatist movement in northern Italy. Beretta is from northern Italy, and we have some 16th century firearms from that same region, so there's a very strong and long tradition of firearms manufacture in that area. But yeah, rather than putting Brescia on the side, they've put Padania, which is interesting and hopefully doesn't cause some sort of political backlash. We've got a lot of detail on here, as is the case for all of these. Good magazine modelling. In the couple of years we've been doing this series, I've finally honed sense for when people bother to model magazines correctly. We've come a long way from just a collection of polygons with nothing in the top to a fake round in the top, but it's not positioned realistically, to something that actually looks like what you would insert into the grip of or in this case into the grip of the pistol. Double stack rounds in there, cut out for the mag catch, some scratches and texturing on there to make it look like it might actually be a real thing. For years, magazines have been neglected, so it's nice to see a good effort there.
Drop the gun.
Something I'm seeing on all the guns so far is a really nice heat haze effect around the muzzle. It's really nice, but it's not something I've ever been aware of shooting a gun. I think you'd have to get the gun pretty hot to be and I know this is the case, it can happen, but you would have to fire a lot of rounds in the right sort of atmospheric conditions to be able to see the heat haze around the barrel. It's the same effect, of course, as driving on a hot road. You see the heat haze above the hot tarmac. Absolutely can happen. In this situation, after the first few shots, probably not. Certainly not with a pistol. Not getting hot enough, quick enough to create that effect. So interesting to see. Not so. I think it perhaps needs to be scaled back a bit.
Who's do it now?
Yeah, something I've gone on about previously from the good old days of Rainbow Six and SWAT and games like that, Ghost Recon, is realistic ammunition management, which John Browning be praised, we have in this game. So if you fire a couple of rounds, you take the magazine out, put it imaginarily somewhere on your kit. When you then come back to, you have the rounds that you have, and if you put that magazine back in the weapon, you have that many rounds still in the magazine. They're not automatically leveled out and topped up. I really like it when games do realistic ammunition management, and in this situation, it adds a real hell of a lot to the gameplay as well. If you can just do the COD reflex reload after 2 rounds every time, admittedly that gets you killed. If you know you can do that, you can always prepare for a situation. If you have to remember that you've got less than half a mag for your pistol and you're on your last couple of shots in your rifle, it makes you think, it ratchets up the tension, it makes the game so much more fun. Big fan of it. So we have got some variety in reloads as well. Got a nice retention reload on the Beretta there, where the partially expanded magazine is withdrawn. Fresh one is already in the hand, you insert the other one, and then you pocket or pouch the magazine you've taken off. So it's got all the sort of tactical bells and whistles that we'd want to see in terms of modern thinking in how you should move and shoot through an environment like this.
Get down and put your hands up.
Right, G36. I've grabbed one of our many G36s. So this is a G36C, as depicted in Ready or Not, pretty much, with a couple of differences. These are modular firearms, so there are differences. So the trigger group, this one's semi-automatic only. The concern there being that even well-trained firearms officers might accidentally flick to automatic and accidentally hit people that they shouldn't be hitting. It's deemed that all they need is semi-automatic, self-loading only. So that's what this has. In the game, of course, I think people would be disappointed if it was semi-only. Being based on US special weapons and tactics teams, by default they tend to have select fire available to them. It's also accessorized like the one in the game. Now the glaring difference here is this still has its traditional G36 Picatinny rail carry handle / optical sight rail. The version in the game is a configuration I have seen, but that we haven't got, where it just has a front sight block and effectively a rear sight block with Picatinny on, and the whole top of the weapon is left open. That's a bit of a weird configuration, in my view. It seems a bit bizarre. It doesn't reduce the footprint of the weapon, as it were. All it does is open up the cocking handle to potentially getting struck by something. Unlikely, but nonetheless. Because this is the cocking handle, by the way, or charging handle. You lock it into place there. Accessible from both sides, a good feature of the G36. And it also means that you don't have the real estate across the top of the weapon for placement of the optic. So you would have to be happy with something like a micro red dot quite up close back here. May not be an issue. There may be guys out there running those versions, but I'm not really clear on why you'd bother. And the vast majority that you see in actual use do still have that carry handle in place. Now, another cool feature here that isn't too often depicted, although some of the more famous depictions are in things like Call of Duty, and that is night vision with an infrared illuminator. So this G36 has been equipped with a laser light module, or I think in this case just a laser, that's invisible to the naked eye, but when you put your night vision device on, it's plain as day to you and your team members who are using night vision, but the enemy, or in this case suspects, haven't got a clue that they're being literally lit up. So you can really quite precisely aim at close quarters with effectively a laser sight, only it's infrared, so it can't be seen by anyone who isn't wearing night vision. Right, well I didn't mention it with the MP5, which is an egregious oversight, but with the MP5 we don't get the infamous HK slap. The game is sort of differentiating itself by not doing that, and which is completely fine. We lose major cool points, of course, but simply knocking the cocking handle out of the slot and letting it fly forward is completely legitimate, and that's how this game handles the MP5. Now, where a lot of games perhaps not get it wrong, but depicted in the wrong order, I suppose, is with the UMP, which is what I'm watching at the moment, where you can manually lock the bolt open like an MP5, and you can slap it out of the slot if you wish, but the way you're supposed to reload it is with the AR-15 style ping-pong paddle, as they sometimes call it, on the left side of the gun. And ready or not, has you use that. It doesn't have you manually lock it open, change the mags, and slap the handle down, which you can do, but this gun is set up to meet the market demand for AR-15 style ergonomics. Otherwise, it's a UMP. The UMP rarely appears in its 9mm form because what's the point? You may as well have the 45 to give you a sort of stopping power difference. And of course that gives you proportionately more recoil than something like an MP5, which is true, it does in real life. I often have a problem with video game guns that are polymer bodied not looking like plastic. This definitely does look like plastic. It's maybe a bit too shiny. It looks like it's plastic that's been handled a lot. And polymer guns do get a lot of handling in certain areas, and certain types of polymer do turn shiny. Not so much your glass reinforced nylon type Glock style polymer that the UMP is made out of. They tend to just get scuffed and worn looking with scratches and dings and chewed up bits. They don't tend to go shiny like this. But this is extremely nitpicky.
Suspect DOA.
Civilian contact!
People over here.
Copy that, entry team. Notifying morgue.
Right, the SCAR. Not too much of a surprise necessarily to see this, although I'm not sure that police would necessarily have the Mark 16 Mod 0 version. So for those who don't know, the Mark 16 Mod 0 is the US Navy designation for the Select Fire FN SCAR Light, or L, and that's what's modelled here in its short-barreled condition. We have got one, I didn't grab it today. I think a US police department's more likely, correct me if I'm wrong, to have the commercial equivalent of that. So the difference would really only be in the markings there, because when I say commercial, I don't mean civilian semi-auto only, I mean Select Fire, FN SCAR, but it's not the US military adopted version. The way this is modelled and the way the player character holds it is a good illustration of why some people are not fans of reciprocating cocking handles. So the charging handle, cocking handle on the left side, flying back and forth at quite a rate of speed. If you happen to pop your thumb up in front of that, at the very least you're going to stop the weapon from cycling, and it might also smart as well. So for that reason, FN, or FN USA anyway, have introduced a non-reciprocating charging handle version, although I don't know if that's offered to military and law enforcement. Plenty of other users don't seem to have a problem with it, and this chap is keeping his knuckles well out of the way.
Unarmed contact.
Right, shotguns. Benelli M4, modern benchmark for a tactical shotgun. We haven't got one. All donations gratefully accepted. Yeah, it makes perfect sense it would be in this game. It's semi-automatic, 12 gauge, gives you flexibility, very powerful up close, and as the game correctly depicts, can reach out to, well, maybe 50 yards, something like that, with buckshot or a slug, and still have a considerable effect. This is not your Doom 2 super shotgun. The reload is a very modern, competition-inspired, over-the-shoulder, flip the gun over and load in that fashion. I don't think they're doing any sort of quad loads or anything, John Wick style, but that's the first time I've seen that style of reload in a video game.
Please get down.
If you'd like to check out the Royal Armouries YouTube channel alongside this one, please do. We also have various of our own social media outlets and 3 rather nice museums that you can come and visit. And as ever, if you'd be kind enough to donate to us, we don't require it by any means, but there is a link in the description. Thanks again, guys.